This is episode 104 of the Equestrian Author Spotlight podcast. I'm Carly Cade, and today I'm speaking with award-winning author and lifelong horse enthusiast, Laura Holt-Haslam. Laura writes books that entertain, educate, and inspire horse lovers of all ages. She's passionate about sharing her love of horses through art, writing, and hands-on learning. Over the past 35 years, she has taught basic horsemanship and mentored hundreds of children and teens, encouraging them not only to become more confident equestrians, but more compassionate people. Her middle grade novels, Sophia's Surprise, A Place for Sophia, and Sofia and Sundance explore the transformative power of horses and friendship. Laura is the mother of 2 young adult children. She lives in southern Maine with her husband, 2 adorably naughty cats, and the friendliest dog you've ever met. She and her daughter share ownership of Max, a 26-year-old Palomino miniature horse who loves to jump. Max lives with his best friend, a pony named Dusty. They are the official spokesPONIES of Laura's publishing imprint, River Pony Press. Now, let's get into the interview. Welcome to the Equestrian Author Spotlight podcast, a podcast featuring interviews with equestrian authors who love all things horses and writing about them. In each episode, you'll hear inspirational stories from horsebook authors, including writing advice and marketing tips to help you write your very own horsebook. If you're an author, aspire to be an author, or simply love horsebooks, then you are in the right place. I'm your host, Carly Cade, and creative writing makes my spurs jingle. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Equestrian Author Spotlight podcast. I'm Carly Cade, and today I am so excited to have Laura Holt-Haslam on the show with me. Welcome, Laura.
Hi, Carly. It's so great to be here.
I am so excited to have you. Laura has some amazing stories about friendship and courage and moving forward and bonding with horses. But before we get into the nitty-gritty of her books, I always love to ask this question to the authors that come on the show. Laura, how have horses inspired your life?
Well, horses have really been pretty much my entire life almost. I was reflecting on this and realized that my first love was actually dinosaurs. And when I was 5 or 6 years old, I could name all the different kinds of dinosaurs, and I wanted to grow up to be a paleontologist. And I was thinking about how probably my 6-year-old self might be a little bit disappointed that I didn't end up going there. But one of the things about dinosaurs, you can't ride them. That would be cool if you could.
Oh, yeah.
But anyway. So sometime, I think probably around age 7 or 8, I started getting very interested in horses. I started reading books about horses. And then when I was 11 years old, I was able to start taking riding lessons. And this was at a wonderful barn about 4 miles away from my house, which was useful because then I could ride my bike there too. And I took English riding lessons with a woman who was a dressage instructor. I had no idea what dressage was. And when I was a kid, I don't think I even realized that my dressage instructor was pretty well known in the area. But anyway, it was a good foundation for basic riding skills. When I was 14 years old, I'm a little bit weird, I guess, as a kid. I don't know. I was reading my parents' New York Times. I don't know why. I don't really remember, but they had a section in there about camps. And I started looking at summer camps, and I found out that there was this month-long summer camp in Massachusetts for riding. And I asked my parents if I could go. And that was really a pretty life-changing experience for me because I got to spend a whole month with these horses. They were mostly saddlebreds and Morgans. It was actually like a breeding and training facility too. It was fairly unstructured, actually. We rode quite a lot. We got to hang out with the horses quite a lot. But in our free time, we got to kind of just hang out at the barn and do what we wanted. And all the other girls in the camp had a partner to work with to take care of their horse. But I was the odd girl out, which might seem bad, but actually it was awesome because I got my own horse. His name was High Note, and High Note was a Morgan. I got to clean out his stall. I'd make it perfect every single day, like twice a day. I cleaned his tack every day. And then when camp was over, guess what horse was for sale?
High notes.
It was
Really?
high note.
Oh my
And
gosh.
so I was able to convince my parents, I don't think it was actually that hard. They were really wonderful about it, that I could buy high note and bring them home to the place where I took lessons.
That is like the best story ever. I mean, you were cleaning the stall, making it perfect and cleaning his tack all day. What parent
Mm,
wouldn't be like, okay, we need more of these skills, you know? But how lucky, I mean, to
mm,
return home from camp with this horse. That is so
mm.
fantastic. That's like a dream story. And I love
It is.
hearing that another young woman loved dinosaurs because I did
Mhm,
too. I could name them
mhm,
all. My parents
right.
would take me to the museum
Mhm,
where the dinosaurs were, and I'd be pointing everything out with the skeletons, and people would be like, how's this little kid know all this stuff? And then I transitioned to horses. So high
yeah.
five. It's nice to
All
hear that
right.
somebody else liked the dinosaurs too. Now, you had all this great experience with horses, and I agree, dressage is an awesome foundation. And you've channeled your love of horses into a horse book series,
Mhm,
which is also has an interesting story because I understand it became a series, but you wrote the books in out of order fashion, which is really
right.
interesting. Talk to us a little bit about your horse book series and kind of what inspired you to write these books.
Well, sure. And it was written out of order because honestly, I didn't set out to write a series of horse books.
Hmm.
For me, writing has always been one of those things that I've kind of enjoyed, but it wasn't really something that was a passion of mine. But as far as these books, it really, I think, came about when I have two kids. One of them is a horse kid, and one of them isn't. My older child is a horse crazy person, and we have a miniature horse named Max, and that she grew up with. We've had him since she was 3.5 years old. And so he's been an important part of her life, but also mine, and doing things together. When my daughter went off to college, it really left kind of a void for me. And I was really struggling a lot emotionally. Part of it, I think a lot of women go through this kind of, we might call it a midlife crisis. I was just around 50 years old, and my kids were growing up, and I just needed something else in my life. And so this story came into my mind about a horse named Snickers, who was a miniature horse, and his person had gone away and he didn't understand why.
Mm.
And, it wasn't personal at all, right?
Well, where
But
else do we write from, right? You know,
exactly.
these emotions that we feel can bubble up and spark into fictional
Mhm,
characters, right? So that's awesome.
right. So Snickers he just couldn't understand where his person had gone off to.
Mm.
And I had actually started writing this story first person from the perspective of Snickers.
Mhm.
That's actually kind of hard to do. I know some horse writers do that. It didn't work so well for me, but just kind of working out this story in my head, and it kind of ignited in me a kind of a rediscovery of how much I enjoyed writing. And particularly for me, I'm a discovery writer,
Mhm.
which is, some people call it a pantser,
I like
but
Discovery Writer
I
better.
like discovery writer way better. It's just a magical experience for me to be able to sit down and not even really know where the story is going, but having the characters direct it for
Mhm.
me.
Mhm.
And, sitting down and an hour later, maybe having a scene that I didn't even think of when I was sitting down to write. So, my first book that I wrote was called A Place for Sophia. And some of those characters, like Snickers, the miniature horse, are there, and the girl who went off to college. But it ended up being, of course, something very different. But this is A Place for Sophia. So, this is the first book that I wrote, my first novel that I published. However, it actually is not the first book in my series, which is a little funny. After I wrote A Place for Sophia, I had some kids who asked for a sequel. And I thought, oh, I'm going to write a sequel. Okay. And that was very exciting to me. So the sequel became Sofia and Sundance, which was the second book I wrote. After that, I was thinking, okay, how do I market my books? How do I get people to find out about this? And I thought, oh, I could write a novella that was like a prequel to the story. And then I could maybe give it away and get people into the series. So I started working on this prequel novella, and it got bigger and bigger and bigger. And I loved it. And other people who read it loved it. And I decided it couldn't be a novella. It was going to be a novel. And that is what became Sophia's Surprise. So after going through all of that, I said, that's actually going to work better for the first of the series. And at that
Nice.
point, I mean, how many people had even read the other books? Not a huge number. So it's okay. We can reorder the series. So that is where Sophia's Surprise came out.
Oh, that's awesome. And then so far it's a 3-book series.
Hmm.
And do you have intentions of how long do you think the series will be?
I know that it's at least going to have a fourth book that I am working on kind of a little bit. I have another book in a different series that I'm working on actually right now,
Mhm.
but I suspect that there'll be 2 more books in the Sophia series, I think. And there might be some spin-offs because some of the characters that she interacts with are really fun. Particularly, there's a girl named Olivia, and Olivia has a physical disability that never gets in her way. And she's very determined and sometimes a little hot-headed, but a very fun character. And so I'm thinking I might do a spin-off with her as well.
Lovely. I love this. So you took some of that
Hmm.
strange feeling of your children growing up and moving
Hmm.
on, and you channeled, rather
Hmm.
than spinning in a negative
Hmm.
direction, you channeled that into a passion, which became writing, and now you've created a world. I love the
Yes.
spin-offs. I love that you've got
Hmm.
series going. I see your mind working and that
Hmm.
you've got other books on your mind. I
Hmm.
think that is so fabulous, and you are a great testament to what's next. After
Yeah.
being a mom and raising children, what's next, and that and
Hmm.
that provides room for passions and to take on new projects and learn new things. So I give you a lot of credit for doing that and taking that on.
Oh,
Now,
thanks.
okay, you mentioned Max, but
Mhm.
as I was galloping on your website, I noticed, and I thought this was so cool. Max and Dusty, who are miniature horses,
Mhm.
are spokesPONIES for
Mhm.
River Pony Press, which is
Yeah.
what you publish under. Talk to us a little bit about Max and Dusty and how they've kind of become these spokesponies, which I thought was so cute.
Oh, great. I can always talk about those guys. So, first of all, I have to tell you about Max.
Mm.
Max is our horse. Dusty is a pony who belongs to a really good friend of mine. Over my life, I've done a lot of work with kids and mentoring teenagers as well. And so, this person who owns Dusty is actually someone who I've kind of mentored for a long time and helped to get her into
Mm.
horses. So, anyway, she owns Dusty, who is adorable. He's a small pony that kind of has Appaloosa coloring. He's like a few spotted leopard, black and white, I guess is what you'd call him. But he's got like eyebrows. It's so funny.
And you sent me pictures of him, which
Yep.
I'll include in your show
Yeah,
notes, so people
definitely.
can gallop over your show
Oh
notes to see
yeah.
them
So
too
you
if
got
they're
to
not
see that
watching on
because he's got
YouTube.
like eyebrows. He's cute. Anyway, but my miniature horse is Max, and we have had Max for over 20 years. I got him originally from a friend of mine. She had gotten him for her grandchildren who'd outgrown Max, but also
Mm.
my friend was at the time dying from cancer.
Oh goodness.
And so I ended up basically adopting Max into our family.
Mhm.
It was before my youngest was even born. I was pregnant. And anyway, we brought Max home. It was on 9/11 of 2001. So I will never forget the day that we got Max.
Mm.
But Max is a Palomino. He loves to jump.
Mhm.
In the background here, I have a couple of horse show ribbons that he won at miniature horse clubs doing jumping. And we used to drive with him as well. But he also taught my daughter how to ride. He's a little bit on the big side for a miniature, and she was small for her age. So
Aw.
she got to learn. Anyway, so Max and Dusty live at a farm that's also a campground in the summer with a whole bunch of other animals. But Max and Dusty live in a paddock together. They are best friends. Dusty's sometimes a little bit more of a boss over Max, but they're great. And I love to teach kids about horsemanship with them. So when I thought about publishing and, oh, what kind of name would I use? I thought, oh, Max and Dusty have to be a part of this. And we are right next to the Saco River in southern Maine.
Mhm.
So I thought, oh, they're the River Ponies. And they
Aw.
became the River Ponies of River Pony Press.
That is so awesome, and what a good thing you did for him, but you're doing good things with him for others, and what an
Mm-hmm.
important part of your family. I mean, he's been
Oh,
part of
yeah.
all the way through your children growing up.
Hmm.
And now you've written a book series inspired by him. That's what a
Yeah.
testament to his life. That is so wonderful.
And in fact, Max, I dedicated my first book to Max and my daughter. So,
Oh, that is so perfect. I love that. I love how creativity can take so many different threads
mhm,
of things that we've experienced in our life and then give them new meaning and share them with others because
mhm,
I love the message that you hope to inspire with your book series. Can you
mhm.
talk to us a little bit about that?
Sure. Well, there's a few different things that are important to me, just personally, that I want to have out in my books as well. And I very much believe in the power of love and the power of forgiveness. And I think so many of us walk around with these conflicts with people that we should care about, that we should love, but there's just a lot of difficulties in many families, and I know that a lot of kids grow up with that as well. And so Sophia is a kid who comes from a family that is definitely could be described in a lot of ways as dysfunctional, and she has a very chaotic kind of childhood where she's moving around quite a lot. And yet, throughout the book, I really like to present opportunities for Sophia and the adults in her life to understand maybe what does it mean to love and forgive one another even when hard things have happened. So that is a message I hope really shines through the books. I also care a lot about friendship, and Sophia has to navigate a lot of difficulties sometimes with friends. And I think a lot of us forget when we're grown-ups how difficult it is in that age when you're, in middle school, when there's that transition between when you're a child and when you're a teenager. It's so rough. And there's just all these emotions and things just feel so big. And so I hope that the books also offer kids a chance to be able to maybe see how this is modeled, how some setting boundaries sometimes, being able to say no,
Mhm.
being able to compromise, being able to deal with jealousy and even bullies. So these are kind of, particularly as the book series goes on, but definitely is a strong theme. And another one that I think is so important that I want to write about and hope people see is resilience, because I know a lot of us don't have everything we want. You might be a kid who loves horses and you wonder, am I ever going to be able to ride? It's expensive. How could I have my own horse? And I think Sophia models that if we work hard and maybe we're not afraid to go and shovel the poop and do all of that stuff, that sometimes you got to take the opportunities that come to you. And there are ways to get involved with horses and work hard. So those are the themes that are important to me in my book.
Oh, melt my heart. That's beautiful. And again, it's a contribution to a phase in life that, yes, you're right, as adults, a lot of us forget about. It's just such an awkward time. And kids,
Mhm.
oh, kids can be, I can't even imagine what it's like these days with social media out there, but like
Mhm.
kids can be pretty brutal. Now, your covers,
Okay.
hold those up again. I think they're lovely.
Oh, good.
Talk to us about your cover design and
Hmm.
kind of where you came up with the concept and how
Okay.
they turned out. Yeah.
Well, great. Well, the thing about covers, this is kind of a fun thing to talk about, maybe in the true confessions department, right?
Sure. Yeah. Let's help the other aspiring authors out there. Let's
Yes.
pull back the veil.
So, one thing that they always teach you everywhere is that it's really important to hire a good cover designer.
Mhm,
I, however, had pretty much no budget.
mm,
I am not a person with huge amounts of extra money. And I thought, oh, I can do this myself. Because actually, one of my other passions is that I do like to create art. And so I thought, I think I can do this. And one of the things when looking for covers for children's books, a lot of them, instead of having photographs, they will have artwork.
mhm,
But I did try to look for photographs. That's an easier way to go. But one of the things that was challenging is that Sophia has a white mom and a black dad. And I really wanted to make sure that that was represented on the cover. And it was actually this is a sad thing about horses, that people of color are not highly represented in a lot of areas in the horse world. Lots of pictures of white girls and horses.
mhm.
So I thought, okay, I've got to do this myself. And I dabbled and I tried and I didn't know how to do anything on the computer. I mean, I have computer skills, but I had never done digital artwork.
Which is
I,
a whole nother
oh
realm
my
of
gosh.
education and learning. Yeah, I have a new respect for that after becoming an author and
Oh
in book
yeah.
cover design. Absolutely.
So the first time, my first attempt. Okay, so I'm going to give you the true
Oh
confessions
my
here.
gosh, thank you.
Here's the first attempt. I'll show you the back first because I like the back better. Okay, so the back is better because it has a cute little horse because I do know how to paint. Okay,
It's a
but it was
beautiful.
very hard. I had to try to get the background removed and how do I set everything up? And then the front, oh, Sophia did not come out very good. I didn't like her. I thought it was, not the best. And I was always a little bit embarrassed by this. Now, I have a niece who is an art major in college, and she said she'd help me out a little bit.
Mhm.
And so after I did that cover, I worked with her and we started thinking about some ideas. A Place for Sophia ended up becoming this cover, which was inspired a bit by books like Charlotte's Web,
Yeah.
kind of a classic feel. I did not draw this, although I gave some sketches. She did this on the cover. I had to put the cover together,
Mhm.
and she did the back, which I liked. And then right after that, we were also simultaneously working for Sofia and Sundance. And so I actually did the drawings for that, but she kind of had to help put it into a digital format.
Mm.
So once that was done, when I went for Sophia's surprise, I said, I've got to do this myself. I've got to figure out how to do this. So I bought myself a inexpensive drawing tablet and a stylus, and I taught myself how to paint digitally, which
Wow.
and how to do some graphic design, kind of.
How neat is that though that you can combine your art is wonderful. Like you can
Okay. Mhm,
combine your drawings and I mean so many of us
mhm,
grew up drawing horses and telling
mhm,
little stories and you're able to combine those two passions and actually
mhm.
use your artwork for the cover, which I think is lovely. Now when you designed the cover, did you use like say Amazon's cover designer or
No.
how did you wind up doing that or did you work with her in Photoshop? Like how did you create that file?
Oh, yeah. So she gave me for the first two that she was helping me with, she gave me the front and the back, and I had to figure out how to do the spine. I
Oh, the
got
spine is the
uh,
hardest part.
and also how to put all the words in and
Um,
where to get the words in.
mhm,
I worked with a couple of different programs, but the program that I'm working with now is one called Clip Studio,
mhm.
which is I think a lot of anime users do it, but I don't know much about it. I'm cheap, so I don't have Photoshop, but I do know how to do this. So basically, I downloaded the template for the book sizes. You have to know how many pages are in the book,
Mhm.
and download the template, and then I had to just work with that till I get it right and upload it to Amazon. And I also use Draft to Digital and make sure everything fits correctly.
Mhm.
Another useful tool that people might find is BookBrush, which I do use also. And that is helpful to kind of make sure everything looks right and is placed well as a cover. So you can also go into BookBrush to get those kinds of templates.
Hmm.
Yep.
Well, that's very helpful. And
Hmm.
I love that you said that. I mean, so many authors getting started are on a tight budget and
Hmm.
try to figure out how to do these things on their
Hmm.
own. And often it's very challenging and and can get you into trouble. But and you didn't like your first version, and then you went back and that's the great
Hmm.
thing about being an independent
Right.
author, though, is you can update your cover, update
Hmm.
what's inside your book or your back matter, so you can fix those things. And that's why I put together this podcast so people can hear some of the trials and tribulations that authors go through when they're trying to figure these things out. And there are resources like Fiverr where you
Yeah.
can find someone to put your book graphics together for you on the cheap. And I've also found too, I've made investments. I've changed my first cover over and over and ended up working with a professional graphic designer. And realistically, if you have all your ducks in a row, it doesn't have to cost that much. That's what I like to tell people, to have a professional design. But and you
Hmm.
are fortunate and use your resources. You are fortunate.
Hmm.
You have a niece in art
So,
school. I mean, that
yeah.
how helpful is
Mhm.
that, right?
That's
And then
very helpful.
and don't discount that you can learn some of these things on your own,
Mhm.
which you've done
Yeah.
very successfully.
Yeah, thank you. That is something that I would say to people, that it's good if you want to go ahead and try to learn these skills. Part of it for me and part of this whole journey is I like to learn.
Mm.
I want to do these things myself
Mm-hmm.
because I want to feel like I've mastered this.
Mm-hmm.
So, I really feel pretty good about the design that I was able to do myself. And I can also show you a cover that is a photograph cover that I did for my gratitude journal, which is
Oh, yeah.
another thing that I have published just to show, because we're talking about covers. So this is an example of a cover that I did with a photograph that I purchased.
Wow,
So,
that's beautiful.
right, I think it is. I think it came out really quite nice. So
Mhm.
I do say that most people really should probably get professional help, and I probably should too. But I'm a stubborn person.
Well, that's a lot of the reason why we choose independent publishing, because we have
Mhm.
creative control and we
Yeah.
like to figure. I mean, that's the thing. You have to have the patience to figure these things out yourself if you want to go that route to make a
Mhm.
quality product. You
Mhm.
can do it, but you have to spend the energy and the time and sometimes resources to buy the right programs and figure
Mhm.
out exactly what you're doing to create a very good product. So it is
Right.
possible, and you're a testament to that. Now, we've touched on it a couple times here. You decided to go the independent publishing route.
Mhm.
Why did you make that decision rather than going the traditional route?
Part of it was that I never initially intended to do this, right?
Mhm.
It was kind of a project that it was a bit of a passion project for me. And when I finally got it to the point that I did feel that it was ready to publish, and there's some things about that too that helped me to get to that point that we haven't talked about yet. But I kind of thought of this as something that maybe it was just going to be for a few people, my family, some of my friends, my kids. It wasn't going to be something I was trying to sell. And so obviously it was easier to go the independent route.
Mhm.
But the other thing, kind of now, I feel like I like having that creative control. And I don't like the thought that I might have to try to convince somebody, an agent or something like that, that I'm worthy to be represented, and that that this book is somehow validated because it is accepted by this agent or accepted by someone else. So that's really partially my decision.
Mhm.
I sometimes think it might be easier if I went tried to go the traditional route, and just in terms of marketing, because that can be hard for children's books. But I haven't decided to go there yet. Maybe in the future, I don't know.
Yeah, and well, truth be told, these
Mm,
days now, I mean, a lot of the marketing, even if you are
mhm,
traditionally published, does
mm.
fall to
Oh,
the
yes.
author, whether you're, with a publisher or not. So,
Mhm,
so a lot of the marketing falls to you anyway.
mhm,
Now, and I think you mentioned too in the responses to the questions that it's faster, which it is. Often
mhm.
if you go the traditional route, it can take a couple of years or a year to even
Yeah.
get anything moving. So it is much faster to independently publish and control. A lot of us
Mhm,
source people are control freaks, so so doing it that way is good, and it's working for you,
mhm,
and you retain your intellectual property, which is really smart. So you've written 3 books. You didn't intend to be a writer, but it's
mhm,
it's taken off. You're really
mhm,
feeling it, and it's successful. How do you structure your day to make sure to get the time in to write? I mean, your children are grown, so you have
mhm.
less tearing through the house
Oh,
and
yeah.
excitement going on. But what do you do to get the words on the page?
All right. Well, because I do have another job too, so it's important for me to try to structure my time.
Mm.
Initially, I was just one of these people who just wrote when I felt like it. And I will say that that does not really work very well. It works if you want to dabble. It doesn't work if you want to produce books. So, what my process is now, and has been for probably a little more than a year, is maybe even more than that. I don't remember, but I get up first thing in the morning. I feed my pets, and then I sit down and I write for at least an hour, and usually more like an hour and a half before I do anything else.
Mhm.
And then I know it's done.
Mhm.
And it gives me a sense of accomplishment for the day, because the times when I say, oh, I'm going to get to it later, I end up not getting to it later.
and then and then you beat yourself up and berate yourself for not getting
Oh,
your
yeah,
writing in. Yeah, it's just better
exactly.
to get it out of the way.
And there's so many other tasks once you get publishing books, as you know, and
Mhm.
I'm sure that many of your listeners know. You get the book published and there's still so much to do. I mean, I have to kind of, in a sense, manage a small business. And so I do that a lot in the evenings. I'm also part of a online critique group, which is really helpful for me, but it also that requires time too because I have to make sure that I'm critiquing my partners. So,
Hmm.
got to make sure that you get that time structured and
Yeah.
got to also go see the horse too, you
Oh
know.
yeah. I mean, yeah, busy lady. And then the critique group. Talk to us a little bit
Mhm.
about how your critique group works and how you
Mm.
found yourself a part of a critique group.
All right. Yeah. When I started to get a little tiny bit more serious, I thought maybe I should join some kind of group. A lot of writers do this.
Hmm.
I had actually taken an online course where you got to submit your writing and had like people who are also taking the course critique it. It was not a big course or anything like that, but I had done that, and afterwards I thought I need to be part of a group. And I looked at local groups that were in person and I got too intimidated. I
Mm.
thought, oh my gosh, these people are real writers. I think we do that to ourselves,
Oh,
right?
we do. Yes.
Like, oh my gosh. And they like write real stuff. Like, I write stories about horses. Who writes stories about horses?
A lot of us, but actually,
Yeah, exactly.
but
But anyway, so I thought I've got to find a group, but I don't know how. And then I discovered this group called Critique Circle, and I think there's probably several thousand members of it. It's worldwide.
Mm.
I think it's critiquecircle.com. The way that it works is that you critique other people's work and earn some points. And when you have enough points, you can then submit your work to be critiqued.
Ah.
And initially, it's hard because you don't know anybody, but over time, you start to establish relationships with other people and critique. And it's been wonderful. I've met some wonderful friends. Maybe I'll never meet them in person. It's great. We can encourage one another and sometimes give the hard message that this is just not working right.
Hmm.
Um, so it's been a very important part of my process.
Yeah,
I
and
recommend it.
so doing it digitally and online where you're not sitting in a room feeling
Mm-hmm.
intimidated has been
Mm-hmm.
easier for you because I imagine it's still a
Yeah.
little intimidating, right? Or is it easier
Yeah.
without that face-to-face kind of interaction?
I think that it was much less intimidating because you're anonymous. I mean, you just have
Mhm.
a pen name right up there.
Mhm. Mhm.
They don't even know who you are.
Mhm.
And of course, I notice a lot of people have this when they first join Critique Circle. I think that a lot of people think their work is a lot better than it really is. And I know that sounds terrible, but it's hard to get that feedback,
Mhm.
but you will grow and you will
Yeah.
get better. And so I think that that can turn a lot of people off. But for me, it was really helpful. And it's also helpful to know that you can give that honest feedback and it's not like that your next door neighbor that you're going to see or the person you're going to run into the grocery store, right? We're all very nice. It's not bad, but I
Yeah.
think that that does help.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, well, and that's part of the journey of being a writer because the more you write, the better you do get. And,
Mhm,
you do need feedback
mhm,
and there are different ways to get that as
mhm,
you move forward. And something to remember is fresh work is not polished work, so
mhm,
it can only sharpen your tools, I think, to be involved in something
mhm.
like that. And I love that you mentioned like the anonymous way to do it, which, makes a lot of sense because the last thing I would ever want for someone to do is join a critique group and be, not move forward with their creative pursuits
Mhm,
because they felt intimidated or put down. Because some
mhm.
authors can and writers can be really,
Yes.
really
Mhm,
hard. So it's like you have to find the right people to help you move forward in the
mhm,
right places. So test drive a couple different places, but don't ever be
mhm.
stopped because that happened to me early on in
Oh,
my
yeah.
career. Is I was stopped by feedback from someone who didn't even read in my genre. And that was like the first 5 chapters of my book. So, I mean, that
Mhm,
stopped me early on.
mhm,
So, get that first thing done. Work with people that are going to give you feedback. If critique groups work for you, maybe go the anonymous route, like Laura suggests. But, also protect yourself. Don't get stopped. If you have this passion or you want to tell this story, absolutely do. But understand there are opportunities and you need to get feedback to polish it before you put it to publication. Would you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. And the thing is, too, is you will get some people who can be pretty brutal,
Mm.
and it's hard. I wouldn't want that to stop anybody. But there's also just so many wonderful supportive people as well. And I think over time you can kind of sort that out so that if people did want to go and check out Critique Circle, just to let you know that anyone can critique on any of the different, they call them the cues, but there is one that's specific to children and young adult,
That's
which
good.
can be helpful. There's also, one that's more women's or romance, and there's science fiction. So there's all those things. However, they don't have a horse one.
We need to create more horse
We need to.
spaces.
But you know what? While doing this, I've actually found a couple of people who love horses. And I have a fellow writer friend who has also written some pony books. She's from the United Kingdom. But she and I have a great time talking back and forth about horses. And there's several others there too.
Isn't that awesome? I love how horses bring people together in so many different realms. It's always like it brings us together through our writing, in just you run into somebody at the airport who loves horses, then all of a sudden this whole conversation explodes. Horses are very big connectors in so many different ways. You took on this passion, you started writing, you wrote the books kind of and reordered them, you're starting this series, you've got all these ideas. How do you celebrate your successes and milestones as a writer? What do you do for yourself to celebrate?
Well, when I first finished my first draft of A Place for Sophia, my first novel, I was so excited for myself because I had started, this is something I haven't talked, but I had started other books and novels at various points in my life and never finished. And so that was a big deal. And I told people about it and I went out to dinner. And then when I published the book, oh yes, I was so excited. But now it's a little bit more of a subdued celebration. I think it's just, I am thankful and to celebrate it. And I certainly, when I get the books and hold them for the first time, that's a great celebration too.
Oh yeah, there's nothing like that feeling. And I love that you said that too, because it does get easier once because I had a lot of started projects and things that I stopped. Once you've done it, it's possible. And like, that's a success in itself. Like getting that first hurdle out of the way, then you're like, oh, I know it's a lot of work and it's an uphill climb, but I can do it. There's something to be said for that. So good on you. And then all of a sudden more books start spilling out of you. It's like, oh my gosh, I've written 3 books. I've written 4 books. I can't believe this. This is amazing. So good on you. And then how are you reaching your readers? Because I imagine, given the demographic you're writing for, I mean, I know adults will read it, but you kind of have to focus on the adults and young people's lives in order to encourage them to purchase the book for these young readers. So what are you doing in that realm?
Right. So what I'm doing is learning.
Good. Educate. Yes.
I'm getting better. Honestly, exactly what you said. It's very hard because your target group is not going to be the people who purchase it. And what I have found is that grandparents are definitely, grandparents are great. They're the ones who buy books for their grandkids. I have to have a shout out to my mom. My mom is amazing. And she's like, she buys books for everyone she knows. She gets all my books. She sends them out to everyone.
That's
so
wonderful.
Thanks, Mom.
Yeah, family can be big supporters. I have people like that in my corner too. We need them, and we thank them so much.
So far, mostly how I've been reaching people is just through people that I know and word of mouth and the contacts that I have. I have some horse related contacts, so I try to work with that as well. But in terms of reaching my audience, one of the goals that I have for this year is to start doing library visits and school visits. It's a little intimidating for me because I feel like, oh, I have to prove myself or prove that I'm worthy to go to the wonderful library. I don't know why. It's a silly thing that we do to ourselves.
I know. Yeah. Self-doubt is the worst. We are our own worst enemies with this stuff. I totally know what you're saying.
But I know that that's the way to really connect with kids. And I love kids. I love mentoring kids and working with kids and encouraging them to read and write and I love to talk to kids about horses. So I know I'd be very good at doing this. And I've done a lot of those kinds of things in other areas of my life. So I probably have the skills to do it. It's just giving them a call and saying, hey, I'd like to do this. And if I can work this out, I'd love to bring Dusty with me on a couple of those. I'd like to bring Max, but he's a little bit more shy around grown-ups. He likes kids, but
Aw.
you have to know your horse. You don't want to stress them out too much.
Yes,
So I think that
absolutely.
Dusty would be a very fun spokespony, and you know, kids are gonna want to come and see Dusty the
Yeah, and
pony.
well, who's gonna turn you down when you say, "I'm gonna bring a mini pony and talk
Yeah.
about, read a story for children about compassion and love and friendship."
Oh yeah.
And he could be your support animal through all this. So, I mean,
Oh,
you've
yes,
got
exactly.
the successes written all over this thing. Yeah, I mean, you have a little, pony's way cooler than a dog or something. I mean, dogs are cool, but, like, bringing a mini
Hmm.
pony to a place like this and having a
Hmm.
conversation about horses and then looping your book into
Hmm.
it is like a perfect fit. I think you've said you've got ribbons in the back where you've been to miniature pony horse
Hmm.
shows. I mean,
Yeah.
that would be a good place to take your books.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely. I thought about that last summer, and just general horse shows, because there's a lot of minis in my book, but there's also full size horses, just
Yeah.
so people know, and there's
Mhm.
riding,
Yeah.
so it's not just little ones. Like I said, I really enjoy interacting with people. So it's just pushing myself to say, okay, I can do this. And I think it also helps to have a few books. I mean, it's
Oh,
harder to
yes.
just do if you take one book. The good news is that a very large number of kids, even if they aren't riding, love horses.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's a pretty universal thing.
Oh, yeah. Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. I always like to ask these questions because everybody's perspective is a little bit different. For you, what has been the hardest part about being an author? And then on the flip side, what has been the very best part about being an author?
The hardest part for me has been figuring out marketing
Mm.
and figuring out how to get the books out there to the world. And I think that for many authors, that is going to be one of the hardest things. It can be very frustrating.
Mhm.
I spent early on, as I was trying to figure this out, I made the mistake that a lot of people do. And if people are listening, I'm just going to tell you this, it's a hard message to hear, but you're not going to just write a book and put it on Amazon and all of a sudden become a bestseller. It's
Mhm.
just not going to happen. And we want so desperately to have this route that if we take this, this will happen. So one of the things I initially tried to just kind of thought, oh, maybe I could, if I sign up for this course and I spend X hundreds of dollars on this course, I'm going to learn how to do it. And there's a lot of things that we can learn, but it's never easy. So that's for me the hardest part, really, is that idea of mastering the marketing piece of it.
Mhm.
But the part that I love the most, and what really keeps me going, besides personally, I enjoy writing, but I love to connect with people who read my books and enjoyed them, and just talking to people. Adults, definitely, but I love talking to children too. I was thinking about something that happened this summer. There was a girl who I had met through where I keep Max, and her mom had bought her the first book, Sophia's Surprise, and she was about halfway through it. And she was 7 years old. So just
Oh,
kind of beginning to read. And so that people know, these are I never even said that. These are middle grade books. So they're really for about age 8 through 12 or 13.
mhm.
So anyway, she's a good reader. She was reading it, and she was saying to me, first of all, she was all upset about how Jasper was so mean. And he was so mean to Sundance. How could he be such a bully? And it was just so fun to talk
Oh,
with her about a particular scene. But she also assured me that she was going to get a horse, and that she was thinking that she was going to get a Palomino. Now, one of the
nice.
horses is a Palomino, but she was going to start out by getting a Morgan. And I love this because the Morgan is Grandma Lisa in the book owns a Morgan. And I guess apparently from reading the book, she began to think that somehow getting a Morgan would be a good stepping stone to getting a Palomino.
Oh, that is so touching. And then I think, don't you have a picture
Oh,
there
I
that's
do have a
on?
picture I want
Yeah.
to show you. So right before Christmas, it's always great to get unexpected presents. And as
Mhm.
grown-ups, we don't get very many that are surprises, but there was a package. And I thought, what on earth is this? And I've got to go show it to you. Let's see if we can get that all in.
It's
I
all
think,
in.
all right. It's a wonderful picture that one of my readers, one of my big fans, sent to me. She had painted it for me and mailed it. I couldn't believe it that she mailed it to me for Christmas. What a great gift that was. And that's a picture of Sofia and Sundance.
Oh,
And I am just, absolutely thrilled. I put it on my Facebook. I'm going to share it in my newsletter. So I love it when kids send me artwork or stories that they write. So
Oh,
that's one of my favorite things.
well, that's lovely. I mean,
Mm,
obviously, you're inspiring and touching and moving
mm,
these young people that are
mm,
reading your
mm,
books. I mean, to receive a painting in the mail of your lead
mhm,
character and her horse for
mhm,
Christmas is a pretty amazing
mm,
testament to your words
mhm.
that you're inspiring other people and sharing your stories with them. So, congratulations! How
Well, thank you.
lovely. Now, if you could give yourself one piece of advice before you hit publish on your first book,
Mhm.
what would you tell yourself? I mean, I'm sure there's plenty, but you
There
know.
are many things, but I'm just going to tell you embarrassing story, very embarrassing story. Please, oh, please, oh, please, anyone who is about to publish a book, even though you've proofread your book,
Mm.
you know it's perfect, right? And you're getting your proof in the mail. Either you or someone else needs to read the proof copy. Don't just assume it's fine. So, so this was the disaster, and in retrospect, it was totally not a big deal, but it was just crushing to me.
Mm.
So somehow, when I formatted the book, I missed a chapter. It just wasn't there.
Oh no.
It, and the thing is, what had happened in place is I put two of the same chapter in a row. I don't know how I formatted it this way. I think it was chapter 30. I think we got chapter 30 and then got chapter 30, and they were the same chapter, but we were missing chapter 31. And I didn't know this.
Oh my.
And I had probably sold maybe 30 books, maybe 40 books, when someone alerted me to the fact that you have a repeated chapter. And when I saw it, I was horrified. I thought, I've sold these books. I have to make it right.
Mm-hmm.
And so then I had to go and I had to fix it and buy all these books and send them to all these people that were my friends and family that had bought the wrong book. But we called these the oops copies. And some people actually were very kind and kept their oops copy with the inserted new chapter that was missing that I sent to everybody.
Hey, if it ever becomes a TV series, those oops copies might be worth something, you know, that you like here's what she did when she first came out of the gate. Now look how successful she is. I mean, those things happen, but great advice. Do read your proof copies and double, triple, quadruple check your work
Mhm,
before you put it out, because
mhm.
I mean, but every first book I think has some sort of oops that you have to go back and fix. I know I had some fine. So it happens, but good
Mhm,
on you though. I mean, how lucky were you that the most people that purchased the book were friends and
mhm.
family, and then you did the right
Yeah.
thing. You replaced their
Mhm,
copies with the corrected copies. So that was a blessing, right? And
mhm.
you tell them you hang on to those oops copies, because when this
Yep.
becomes a TV series, those might be worth something. There you go.
That's
That's
what people were telling me anyway. I just laughed at them, but
well, that's nice. I mean, see, they believe in you. That's good. And they're like,
I
I'm hanging
actually
on to this. Talk to us a little bit about building confidence as an author, because I think
mm,
this is something that a lot of us struggle with, you know,
mhm,
especially as we're new and we're learning and we're trying to figure out marketing and all
mhm,
these things. But,
mhm.
you know, and not fully understanding that this community is really supportive of each other. So talk to us about how you build confidence as an author.
Oh, that's good. I it's funny because on some levels, I am the biggest cheerleader for everybody.
Hmm.
I'm always telling them, "You're great. You're awesome. You can do this thing." Rah rah, and I'm all, cheering people on. But it's hard to take your own advice sometimes
Mm.
and believe in yourself. So I have this funny war that I think so many of us have going on in our heads, which is on one level, I think, "Oh, I'm really good at this. I can do this. This is amazing." And then I have this other side, which is like, "No, that's terrible. Nobody will ever, it's not legitimate. It's not good." And so I have that little battle going on. And I think that many times, particularly if we, you know, as writers, we care about books. You've read so many incredible books and you almost idolize authors. They
Mhm.
almost become like, they're like these super amazing people. I could never be one of them. There. So you kind of get the sense of like, oh, well, I guess I can't be that good. And I think also you talked about sometimes people give you criticism. And I think that it's easy to believe somehow that only certain types of books are worthy,
Mm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Very deep um, books with wonderful prose or whatever, that win literary awards. Those are the right kinds of books. But I'm really a storyteller.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, for my confidence, some of the things that were really helpful for me was actually being on Critique Circle. As much as initially it was a little hard because you have to recognize those areas that you need to grow in. By the time I was running the second draft of A Place for Sophia through, I started getting a lot of really, really positive feedback. And I have quite a few people on Critique Circle who say a lot of good things about what I've done. So that helps my confidence.
Mm-hmm.
Every time I publish a book, write a new book, that helps my confidence. And one thing that was really helpful to me that I would suggest to people who are just beginning, especially if you write for children, I had a friend, I have a friend who is an English language arts teacher for middle school. And she agreed to let me give her my, before I published A Place for Sophia, to her students. So she had a group of students who had agreed to basically be beta readers
That's
for this.
awesome. That's
And it was
awesome.
amazing. And they did it as like a small group project and discussed it and gave me so much good feedback and positive supportive feedback. And to me, if seventh graders who don't know me at all love the book,
Mm-hmm.
then it must be okay.
That
That is
is
definitely
that is
yeah.
amazing. And but it took something for you to
Yeah.
get to the
Hmm.
creative circle to feel comfortable
Yeah.
giving, hitting the publish button to give those
Hmm.
early, what a perfect beta reader group, by the way, for your
Oh
book,
yeah.
to give that to them. So how did you push yourself in
Hmm.
from that denial, because we
Oh
we
yeah.
we tend to
Hmm.
hang on to that negative conversation
Hmm.
or negative conversations much more than the positive stuff.
Oh
So how
yeah.
did you just go, "Ugh, you're doing it"?
I kind of just had to go, oh, I'm doing it.
Well, I give you a high five to that, because a digital high five, because
Yeah.
that, I mean, honestly, that's what you have to like just supercharge yourself inside and say, I can do this, and push
Mhm.
through
Oh yeah.
those early stumbling blocks. Like you had the hiccup with your chapters, you tried to
Hmm.
figure out cover design, marketing is always something you're researching and learning and trying new things. So it's almost like I believe in this, even though I've got the two sides going on in
Right.
my head, and just I can do it. I mean, I guess that should be the theme for the coming year, right?
I can do it. Yep.
I can do
Oh,
it.
yeah. Well, here, I'll tell you another story about pushing the confidence is my mom kept telling me, you should get your books into our local bookstore,
Uh-huh.
None Such Books. Shout out to them because they carry my books in South
Oh.
Portland, Maine. But I was so scared I couldn't do it. My mom actually brought my books in and kept them in there first. And then I was like kicking and screaming just a few months ago when I finally said, I got to go in and bring them some more books because I had my journal and they had sold some of my other books. And I felt like, oh, walking into this bookstore with a cardboard box of books. I felt so silly. Like, I can't do it. I needed my mom.
Hey, you know what? There's something to be said for our herd of supporters too. They
Oh, yeah.
can often help push us over the
Mhm.
like over that ledge,
Yeah. Yeah.
the good kind of ledge,
Yep.
when we need their support the
Hmm.
most. I mean, you talk about resilience, right? That this
Hmm.
is kind of like
Hmm.
resilience message that you
Yeah.
have in your
Yeah.
book. Like,
Hmm.
and have you found that all these small moments are giving you
Hmm.
more confidence
Hmm.
as you are still growing as a human
Oh
being?
yeah.
Are you finding that?
Absolutely. Absolutely, for sure. And there's so many, you know, I want to tell you, maybe it's not related and we'll sort of wander off just slightly, but I want to tell you another thing that is related to the same kind of confidence thing. As a horse person, as an equestrian, I've always had horses in my life, but my last riding horse that I had, um, Happy, died almost 12 years ago. And
Mm,
I have not owned a full size horse since then. And I only had an opportunity to ride once or twice a year, and I started losing my nerve,
mm,
really, really losing my nerve. And I got to the point where I recognized if I don't do something about this, I'm probably never going to ride. And how can I lose that part of who I am?
yeah.
So 3 years ago, I decided I've got to do this. I'm going to start taking riding lessons. I didn't really have the money to do it,
Mhm.
but I said I can do it every other week. And it has been such a blessing to me to be able to do that. So I just want to encourage anybody, whether it's writing or whatever your passion is, don't just give up on it and say, oh, well, now I'm too old to do it, or I'm not good enough to do it, or physically, or I'm scared. It was so, and I've pushed through that, and I love riding. I have a dressage instructor, and I've learned a lot of things that I didn't know when I was younger. So I might not be galloping off and jumping over huge jumps, but I can now get on a horse and do what I want to do.
Oh, I'm so glad you shared that. That is so special. I mean, you're
Mm-hmm.
unstoppable. Even though you've got that doubt, you're still being unstoppable, and and you're not giving up on the things that fulfill you and are part of who you are. And I just am so happy for you, and I'm so pleased you shared that.
Thank you, Carly.
Oh my gosh, yes, thank you so much. And you're just peeling back the onion and sharing with us really authentic, true things. Now, I have so enjoyed this conversation with you today, and I'm so glad that you got up the gumption to get in touch with me and have this interview, because I think you've offered so much wisdom for my listeners. Would you let people know where they can find more information about you and your books?
I have a website, Holt-Haslam.com. All of the books are on the website, and there are links to every store. I publish wide, but you can get them in pretty much any online retailer. You could also sign up for my newsletter. I would love to get newsletter subscribers, because I put out a monthly newsletter. It talks about my writing in my books, but mostly it talks about very cute things that happen with Max and Dusty and all of the many other animals who live there.
There are a lot. There's like a pot-bellied pig, some lambs, a goat, a couple.
There's so many. There's lots and lots of birds and geese and guinea hens and chickens and ducks, and it's a great kind of barnyard experience. So I write about those too. So it's fun, and I do love to interact with people through my newsletter. So if you go to my website, you can sign up for my newsletter there.
Wonderful. And I will make sure to link to all those places in Laura's show notes, along with wonderful pictures of not only her books, but these adorable miniature ponies that inspired her River Pony process. So Laura, thank you so much for the gift of your time. I've so appreciated your words of wisdom, and I wish you tons and tons of success.
Thank you so much for having me on the show, Carly. I appreciate it.
Thanks for joining us this week on the Equestrian Author Spotlight podcast. I hope you enjoy these Q&A sessions with wonderful equine authors who love all things horses and riding, just like me. Visit my website, carlycadecreative.com, where you can read the show notes, and make sure you never miss a show by clicking the subscribe button now. This podcast is made possible by listeners like you. Thank you so much for your support. Want a free guide to secrets of horsebook authors? Gallop over to carlycadecreative.com/wisdom to have author advice delivered instantly to your inbox. If you are an author who writes about horses and would like to be spotlighted, please let me know. Visit my contact page at carlycadecreative.com to fill out a request. I'd be happy to have you on the show too. Thank you for tuning in to the Equestrian Author Spotlight podcast. See you next time. I'm your host, Carly Cade. Creative writing makes my spurs jingle.